Riverside Junction was the kind of place that made people sad just by looking at it. Not the kind of sad that makes you cry, the kind that sits heavy in your chest and makes you wonder how human beings can live like this. The kind that makes you look away because seeing it feels like admitting something terrible about the world. The town sat 3 hours away from the nearest city, down a road that had more holes than asphalt. 20 years ago, the government had built that road with great fanfare. Politicians cutting ribbons, making speeches about development and progress and a bright future for rural Nigeria. But that was 20 years ago. Now, the road was so destroyed that most drivers refused to use it. The few who did had to swerve around craters that could swallow a motorcycle whole. But the road was just the beginning of Riverside Junction's problems. The real heartbreak was the school. Ibuka Memorial Primary School had been built in 1987, back when the government still pretended to care about places like this. Back then, it was beautiful. Walls painted bright yellow, a roof that didn't leak, 40 teachers, 500 students who believed that education was their ticket out of poverty. But that was before the money stopped coming. Before the teachers stopped getting paid and left one by one. Before the roof started caving in and the walls started cracking and the yellow paint peeled off in long, sad strips. Now, in 2015, Ibuka Memorial Primary School was basically a corpse. Still technically alive, but barely. Mrs. Helen still tried to teach mathematics to 40 students in a classroom with half a roof. When it rained, water poured through the holes, and everyone had to go home. The toilets hadn't worked in 3 years. There were no textbooks, no chalk half the time. Desks were broken, so younger students sat on the concrete floor. But here's what broke your heart if you paid attention. The children still came. Not all of them. Enrollment said 500, but maybe 100 showed up on any given day. But those 100 came because even a school with a leaking roof and no toilets and barely any teachers was still better than nothing. It was still better than home. Amara was one of those children who didn't want to go home. She was 17 years old, thin as a stick, with eyes that seemed too old for her face. She stood under the mango tree outside the school gate one afternoon, not ready to leave yet. "You're not going home?" a voice said behind her. She turned. It was Sarah, a girl from her class. Sarah was luckier than most. She had both parents, and her father was a farmer who actually made enough money to feed his family. Most days, anyway. Home for what? Amara said, and she didn't say it in a sad way. She said it like she was just stating a fact, the same way you'd say the sky is blue or water is wet. Sarah didn't have an answer for that, because she knew. Everybody knew. Amara's parents had died 4 years ago. Yellow fever. She lived with her grandmother now, but her grandmother was so old she could barely walk. Amara was the one who had to find food. Amara was the one who had to find money for rent. Amara was 17 years old, and she was raising herself. "Mrs. Helen probably won't even come tomorrow," Sarah said, changing the subject. "She hasn't been paid in 5 months. Amara laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. "She'll come. She always comes. Where else is she going to go?" And that was the truth about their town, the truth that everyone knew, but nobody wanted to say out loud. There was nowhere else to go. Their town, Riverside Junction, was the kind of place that the rest of the country had forgotten existed. It was 3 hours from the nearest city, down a road so full of potholes that most drivers refused to go there. The government had built that road 20 years ago, back when they still pretended to care. But they hadn't fixed it since. The school was even worse than the road. Ibuka Memorial Primary School had been built in 1987. Back then, it was beautiful. The walls were painted bright yellow. The roof didn't leak. There were 40 teachers and 500 students, and every single one of those students believed that if they studied hard enough, they could become doctors or lawyers or engineers. But that was before the government stopped sending money, before the teachers stopped getting paid, before the roof started leaking and the walls started cracking and the paint started peeling off in long, sad strips. Now, in 2015, there were maybe 8 teachers left, and only 3 of them showed up regularly. There were still 500 students enrolled on paper, but on any given day, only about 100 would actually come to school. The rest had given up. And who could blame them? What was the point of going to school where the teachers barely taught? Well, there were no textbooks, no chalk, no desks. Where if it rained, everyone had to go home because the classrooms would flood. Where the toilets had stopped working 3 years ago, and now everyone just went in the bushes behind the school. The children of Riverside Junction weren't stupid. They could see that school wasn't going to save them. They could see that their older brothers and sisters who had actually finished primary school were still unemployed, still poor, still stuck in the same town with the same problems. So most of them stopped going. The boys found other ways to survive. Some of them worked on their fathers' farms, if their fathers had farms. Some of them learned trades, carpentry, welding, vulcanizing. And some of them, the ones who didn't have fathers or farms or anyone to teach them a trade, they learned how to steal. It started small. A phone here, a wallet there. But desperation makes people do things they never thought they would do. By the time they were 16 or 17, some of these boys were stealing motorcycles, breaking into houses, doing whatever they had to do to eat. The girls had it worse. Because what trade could a poor girl learn in a town like Riverside Junction? There were no factories, no offices, no shops that were hiring. The only jobs available were the kind that didn't get written down on paper. The kind that happened late at night, on dark corners, with men who paid in crumpled Naira notes that smelled like cigarettes and sweat. By the time a girl in Riverside Junction turned 16, she had usually already made her choice. Either she got married, usually to some man twice her age who wanted a young wife he could control, or she started selling the only thing she had to sell: her body. There was a junction at the edge of town, right where the bad road from the city met the even worse road that led to the neighboring villages. That's where the girls would stand. Some of them were as young as 16. They were their best clothes, even though their best clothes were faded and torn. They'd smile at the men who drove by, and when a man stopped, they'd get in his car and do whatever he wanted for 200 Naira. 300 if he wanted something special. 200 Naira. That's about 50 cents in American money. That's what their bodies were worth in a town the government had forgotten. Grace was one of these girls. She was 16 years old, and she'd been standing at that junction for 2 years already. She'd dropped out of school when she was 15 after her father died, and her mother ran away with another man to Lagos. Her teacher, Mr. Emeka, had begged her to stay. "Grace, you're smart," he'd said. "If you just finish school, you could get a scholarship. You could go to university. You could." But Grace had cut him off. "With what money, sir? Who's going to feed me while I'm in school? Who's going to pay for my books? My uniform?" Mr. Emeka had no answer, because he knew she was right. And a week later, Grace stopped coming to class. Now she stood at the junction every evening from 6 until midnight, waiting for men who were usually drunk and always rough. She made enough money to rent a small room and eat once a day. On good nights, she made enough to save a little. She told herself she was saving for something better, but deep down, she knew the truth. There was nothing better, not in Riverside Junction, not for girls like her. And it wasn't just the girls and boys who had given up. The adults had given up too. For years, the elders of the town had written letters to the government. They'd gone to the capital city and sat in waiting rooms for hours, trying to get meetings with government officials who never had time for them. They'd begged their member of parliament, Honorable Chieftain Lottie, to help them. "Our school is falling apart," they'd said. "Our road is killing people. We have no clinic, no clean water, no electricity." And every single time, Honorable Chieftain Lottie would smile his big, politician smile and say, "I hear you. I'm working on it. These things take time." But time passed and nothing changed. The promises were as empty as the children's stomachs. Elder Moses was one of the men who had done the begging. He was 67 years old, with a face that looked like it had been carved from old wood. He'd lived in Riverside Junction his whole life. He'd seen the town when it was thriving, back when the government still cared. He remembered when the school was full and the road was smooth and young people had hope in their eyes. Now, when he looked around his town, all he saw was decay. "We are ghosts," he said one evening, sitting with Elder Martha under the big Irako tree in the town square. Elder Martha was a woman in her early 60s, the kind of woman who had raised 7 children and buried 3. She was tough as leather and twice as wise. "What do you mean, ghosts?" she asked, though she already knew what he meant. "We are dead to the government," Elder Moses said. "They don't see us. They don't hear us. We don't exist to them. We're like ghosts. Elder Martha didn't argue. She couldn't, because it was true. The government had abandoned Riverside Junction. And when the government abandons you in Nigeria, you might as well be dead. But the worst part, the part that kept Elder Moses awake at night, wasn't the bad road or the broken school or even the fact that their children were selling their bodies just to eat. The worst part was that everyone had accepted it. The teachers who used to fight for their salaries had stopped fighting. The parents who used to demand better for their children had stopped demanding. The students who used to dream of being doctors had stopped dreaming. Riverside Junction had become a town of people just waiting to die. Until the day Chief Adebayo Okonkwo arrived. It was a Tuesday morning in March when his convoy of 3 black SUVs rolled into town. The cars were so shiny and new that children stopped playing and stared. In Riverside Junction, nobody had cars like that. The richest man in town, Alhaji Bello, had a 1998 Honda that broke down every other week. But these cars? These were the kind of cars that government ministers drove. The kind of cars that made people stop and wonder, who is this person and what do they want from us? The convoy stopped in the town square, right under the Irako tree. The doors opened, and out stepped a man who looked like he'd never known poverty a day in his life. Chief Adebayo Okonkwo was 45 years old, tall and broad-shouldered, with a clean-shaven head and a smile that showed perfect white teeth. He wore a white agbada that probably cost more than most people in Riverside Junction made in a year. His shoes were so polished you could see your reflection in them. He looked around the town square slowly, taking everything in. The broken buildings, the dirty streets, the children in torn clothes. And then he smiled wider. "I am home," he said. Chief Adebayo Okonkwo stood in the town square for a long moment, just looking around. The people of Riverside Junction stared back at him like he was a creature from another planet. Because in a way he was. Everything about him screamed money. His clothes, his cars, even the way he stood, with his shoulders back and his chin up, that was the posture of a man who had never had to bow to anyone. The people of Riverside Junction knew that posture. They'd seen it on television, on the politicians who made big promises and never kept them. They'd seen it on the rich men who drove through their town once and never came back. So they were suspicious. Of course they were suspicious. Elder Moses was the first to approach him. As the oldest man in the town, it was his responsibility to speak to strangers, especially strangers who showed up in 3 fancy cars. "Welcome," Elder Moses said, but his voice was careful, cautious. "What brings you to Riverside Junction?" Chief Okonkwo's smile got even bigger. "I've come to see the elders. I have a proposition that I think will interest you very much." Elder Moses's eyes narrowed. In his 67 years, he'd learned that when a rich man says he has a proposition, what he really means is, "I want something from you, and I'm going to dress it up nice so you don't realize I'm taking more than I'm giving." "What kind of proposition?" Elder Moses asked. "The kind that requires a proper meeting," Chief Okonkwo said smoothly. "Gather the elders. All of them. I'll come back tomorrow evening. We'll sit down like civilized people and talk." He got back in his car before Elder Moses could ask any more questions. The convoy pulled away, leaving behind a cloud of dust and a town full of confused people. "Who was that?" someone asked. "I don't know," Elder Moses said. "But I don't trust him." Elder Martha, who had watched the whole thing from her small shop across the square, walked over. "You shouldn't trust him," she agreed. "But we should hear what he has to say. What do we have to lose?" Elder Moses looked at her. "Everything," he said quietly. "We could lose everything." But Elder Martha just laughed that harsh, dry laugh of hers. "Look around, Moses. What is there to lose? We already have nothing." And she was right, of course. She usually was. The next evening, all 12 elders of Riverside Junction gathered under the Irako tree. They sat on wooden benches that had been there for as long as anyone could remember. The whole town came out to watch, standing at a distance, but close enough to hear. Because in a small town like this, everyone's business was everyone's business. Chief Okonkwo arrived exactly on time. This time, he came with only 1 car and 2 men who looked like bodyguards. He was dressed more simply today, still expensive, but not as flashy. He learned a long time ago that you have to read your audience. In the city, flash impress people. But in a place like Riverside Junction, Flash made people suspicious. He greeted each elder by name. Somehow, he learned all their names in just one day. Elder Moses, Elder Martha, Elder Adams, Elder Rose, all 12 of them. That impressed them, though they tried not to show it. "Thank you for meeting with me," Chief Okonkwo said, once everyone was settled. His voice was warm, friendly, like he was talking to old friends instead of strangers. "I know you're wondering who I am and what I want. So let me be direct with you, because I believe in respect. And respect means honesty." He paused, making eye contact with each elder. "My name is Adebayo Okonkwo. I was born in Enugu, but I've lived in Lagos for the past 20 years. I'm a businessman. I own construction companies, agricultural businesses, import-export companies. I made a lot of money in my life." The elders waited. They could see all that just by looking at him. They wanted to know what he wanted. "I've been looking for a place to invest," Chief Okonkwo continued. "Somewhere that has potential but hasn't been developed yet. Somewhere the government has overlooked. And someone told me about Riverside Junction." Elder Moses's jaw tightened. "Overlooked is a kind word for what the government has done to us." "I know," Chief Okonkwo said, and for the first time his smile faded. "I've done my research. I know that your member of parliament has been stealing the money meant for your roads and schools. I know the government hasn't sent teachers' salaries in months. I know your children are suffering. If you know all that," Elder Martha said sharply, "then you know we have no money. So what exactly do you think you can invest in here?" Chief Okonkwo leaned forward. "I don't need your money," he said. "I have money. What I need is opportunity. And I see opportunity here." "What kind of opportunity?" Elder Adams asked. He was the youngest of the elders, only 52, and he was more skeptical than the others. "Agriculture," Chief Okonkwo said. "You have good land here, rich soil, but your farmers are using old methods, old tools. They plant by hand, harvest by hand, and then they can't get their crops to market because the roads are too bad. So they sell cheap to middlemen who cheat them. Am I right?" Several elders nodded. This was exactly what happened every single harvest season. "I can change that," Chief Okonkwo said. "I can bring in modern equipment, tractors, irrigation systems, fertilizers that actually work. I can teach your farmers new techniques that will double, maybe triple their yields. And I have connections in Lagos, in Port Harcourt, even overseas. I can get your crops to markets where they'll pay real money. Good money." The elders looked at each other. This sounded too good to be true, which meant it probably was. "And what do you want in return?" Elder Moses asked. "Nothing is free in this world." Chief Okonkwo sat back, that smile returning to his face. "You're right. Nothing is free. I'm a businessman, not a charity. So yes, I want something." "What?" Elder Martha demanded. "A partnership," Chief Okonkwo said. "The farmers keep ownership of their land, but I provide all the equipment, all the expertise, all the market connections. When the crops are sold, we split the profit. 60-40. 60 for you," Elder Adams said, his voice rising. 60 for the farmers, Chief Okonkwo corrected. 40 for me. I take on all the risk, all the upfront cost. They get the bigger share of the profit." The elders went quiet. They hadn't expected that. Usually, when rich men made deals with poor people, the rich men took the bigger share. "But that's not all I want," Chief Okonkwo continued. There was the catch. Elder Moses had known there would be a catch. "I want to build here," Chief Okonkwo said. "I want to fix your roads, build a proper school, maybe even a clinic eventually. I want to make Riverside Junction my home base, my headquarters for this region." "What?" Elder Martha asked bluntly. "Why would a rich man from Lagos want to make a poor town like this his home?" Chief Okonkwo was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke again, his voice was different, softer, more serious. "Because the government has abandoned you," he said. "And when the government abandons a place, that place becomes invisible. No regulations, no inspections, no interference. I can build whatever I want here, run my businesses however I want, without some minister demanding bribes or some civil servant asking for permits. You're off the grid, and that makes you valuable." Now, they were getting to the truth. "So you want to use us?" Elder Moses said flatly. "I want us to use each other," Chief Okonkwo corrected. You need development. I need freedom to operate. We both get what we want. And what's the price? Elder Adams asked. There's always a price. Chief Okonkwo reached into his agbada and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He unfolded it slowly and placed it on the wooden table in front of the elders. I want to be made chief of this town, he said. The silence that followed was so complete you could hear the wind rustling through the Irako tree's leaves. Chief, Elder Martha, he finally said, you want to be chief of a town you've lived in for exactly 2 days? Yes, Chief Okonkwo said simply. I need the authority. If I'm going to invest millions of naira here, if I'm going to bring in equipment and workers and build infrastructure, I need to know that I have the full backing of the community. I need to know that when I make decisions, they'll be respected. And in a traditional Igbo town, that means being chief. That's not how it works, Elder Moses said, his voice hard. You don't just buy your way into being chief. The position is earned. It's given to someone the community trusts. I understand, Chief Okonkwo said. That's why I'm asking you to help me earn that trust. He reached into his agbada again and pulled out a thick envelope. He placed it on the table next to the paper. The envelope was fat with money. They could all see that. 500,000 naira, Chief Okonkwo said. For the elders, to split among yourselves however you see fit. Consider it a sign of good faith. An investment in our future partnership. Elder Martha picked up the envelope, felt its weight, then set it back down like it had burned her fingers. You're trying to buy us, she said. I'm trying to compensate you for your time and effort, Chief Okonkwo said smoothly. Convincing this town to trust me won't be easy. I know that. I'm asking you to vouch for me, to speak on my behalf, to help me become part of this community. That's work. Work should be paid. This is wrong, Elder Adams said. This whole thing is wrong. But Elder Moses was staring at the envelope. 500,000 naira. Split 12 ways. That was over 40,000 naira each. That was more money than most of them had seen in years. That was enough to fix a roof, buy medicine, pay school fees for grandchildren. Tell us the truth, Elder Moses said quietly. The real truth. What are you really going to do here? Chief Okonkwo met his eyes, and for just a moment, his friendly mask slipped, and the elders saw something else underneath. Something cold and calculating. I'm going to build an empire, Chief Okonkwo said. Right here, in this forgotten town. I'm going to make money. Lots of it. But along the way, I'm going to make this town prosper too. Your farmers will eat. Your children will go to school. Your roads will be fixed. You'll have things the government never gave you. And if we say no, Elder Martha asked. Chief Okonkwo shrugged. Then I leave, and you go back to waiting for a government that will never come. Your choice. The elders looked at each other. What he was offering was wrong in so many ways. Buying a chieftaincy title, making deals with a stranger, taking money to convince their people to trust him. But he was also offering them something they hadn't had in years. Hope. We need to discuss this, Elder Moses said. Privately. Of course, Chief Okonkwo said. He stood up, smooth as silk. I'll come back in 3 days. That should give you enough time. He left the envelope on the table. For 3 days, Riverside Junction talked about nothing else. The elders held meetings. Arguments broke out in the market. Families debated at dinner tables. Some people were hopeful. What do we have to lose? They said. The government has done nothing for us. At least this man is offering something. Others were suspicious. You can't trust a rich man, they said. Rich men don't help poor people out of kindness. He wants something we don't understand yet. But the truth was, most people were just tired. Tired of poverty. Tired of watching their children suffer. Tired of hoping for a government that never came. And Chief Okonkwo knew this. He was counting on it. On the second day, he came back to town, but not to meet with the elders. Instead, he went to the market. He bought food from every single vendor. Yams, tomatoes, peppers, fish, everything. He paid double the asking price and told them to keep the change. By the time he left, the market women were singing his praises. On the third day, he came to the school. He found Mrs. Helen trying to teach 40 students in a classroom with half a roof. He watched for a few minutes, then approached her after class. How much are you owed in salary? He asked. Mrs. Helen was too tired to be suspicious. 5 months, she said. 250,000 naira. Chief Okonkwo pulled out his checkbook right there and wrote her a check for 300,000 naira. The extra 50 is for your dedication, he said. This town is lucky to have you. Mrs. Helen cried. She actually cried, standing there in the broken classroom, holding a check from a stranger. By the time the 3 days were up, half the town was ready to make Chief Okonkwo their leader, even without the elders' approval. When he returned to the Irako tree that evening, the elders were waiting for him. The envelope of money was still on the table, but it had been opened. The money had been counted and split. We've made our decision, Elder Moses said. His voice was heavy, like he was carrying a weight he didn't want to carry. We'll support you, Elder Martha added. We'll tell the people that you're a good man, that you want to help us. We'll organize the ceremony to make you chief. But, Elder Moses continued, his old eyes hard. We're doing this because we have no choice. Because our children are suffering and we're desperate. Not because we trust you. Don't ever forget that. Chief Okonkwo's smile didn't waver. I won't, he said, and I promise you this. 10 years from now, you'll look back on this decision and thank yourselves for making it. The ceremony was held 2 weeks later on Saturday. The whole town came out. They slaughtered 3 goats and a cow. The traditional priests performed the rituals. The elders placed a red cap on Chief Okonkwo's head and gave him the staff of office. From this day forward, Elder Moses announced to the crowd, Chief Adebayo Okonkwo is the chief of Riverside Junction. He speaks for us. He leads us. He is one of us. The crowd cheered. They were celebrating. They were hopeful. But Elder Moses, watching from the side, felt something cold settle in his stomach. Because he'd seen the look in Chief Okonkwo's eyes when they placed the cap on his head. It was the look of a man who just won something he'd been hunting for a very long time. And Elder Moses couldn't shake the feeling that they'd just sold their town to a man they didn't really know. But the deed was done. Chief Adebayo Okonkwo was now the leader of Riverside Junction, and he was about to change everything. Chief Okonkwo didn't waste time. 3 days after the ceremony, the trucks started arriving. Big, heavy trucks that rumbled down the broken road, carrying things that Riverside Junction had never seen before. Tractors, plows, irrigation pipes, bags of fertilizer stacked so high they looked like they might topple over. The farmers of Riverside Junction stood by the roadside and watched with their mouths open. Papa Thomas was one of them. He was 53 years old, with hands so calloused and rough they felt like tree bark. He'd been farming since he was 7 years old, the same way his father had farmed and his grandfather before that, with a hoe in his bare hands and prayers for rain. He'd never seen a tractor in real life before, only on television, in advertisements for big commercial farms in places like Kaduna or Jos. He'd certainly never imagined that one day a tractor would come to his small farm. But here it was, shiny and green and massive. That's yours, Chief Okonkwo said, walking up beside him. Papa Thomas looked at him like he'd spoken in a foreign language. Mine? Well, technically it's mine, Chief Okonkwo said with a smile. But you'll use it, you and the other farmers. It'll work all your farms. You'll see, what used to take you 2 weeks to plow, this machine will do in 2 days. Papa Thomas reached out and touched the tractor like he was afraid it might disappear if he blinked. The metal was warm from the sun. I don't know how to use it, he said quietly. That's why I brought them, Chief Okonkwo said, gesturing to a group of young men who'd arrived with the trucks. Agricultural technicians. They'll teach you everything. How to use the equipment. How to test your soil. How to use fertilizers properly. New planting techniques that will give you bigger harvests. And you want 60% of my harvest for this? Papa Thomas asked, because he hadn't forgotten the deal the elders had told him about. 40%, Chief Okonkwo corrected. You keep 60, and trust me, 60% of a harvest that's 3 times bigger than what you usually get. You'll make more money than you've ever made in your life. Papa Thomas wanted to believe him, but he'd been poor for so long that hope felt dangerous. Hope was the thing that hurt you when it didn't work out. What if it doesn't work? He asked. Chief Okonkwo looked at him seriously. Then I lose money, not you. The equipment is mine. The fertilizer is mine. The risk is mine. All you have to do is farm the way these technicians teach you. If the harvest fails, you lose nothing. But if it succeeds," he smiled. "You'll see." Over the next 2 weeks, the technicians went from farm to farm. They tested the soil and taught the farmers things they'd never known. That different crops needed different nutrients. That planting in rows instead of scattered made harvesting easier. That there were ways to keep pests away without just hoping and praying. The farmers were suspicious at first. Their fathers had farmed a certain way, and their grandfathers had farmed that way. And changing felt like disrespecting the ancestors. But Chief Okonkwo was smart. He didn't force anyone. He just picked 5 farmers who were willing to try. Papa Thomas was one of them, and said, "Let's see what happens." And he didn't just focus on the farms. While the agricultural technicians were working with the farmers, Chief Okonkwo's construction crews were working on the roads. The road that connected Riverside Junction to the city had been a nightmare for 20 years. During the rainy season, it was basically a river. During the dry season, it was a minefield of potholes so deep they could swallow a motorcycle. People had died on that road. Cars had been destroyed. Pregnant women had lost their babies because they couldn't get to the hospital in time. Chief Okonkwo brought in graders, pavers, and truckloads of asphalt. Within a month, the road was smooth. Not perfect, this wasn't Lagos, but good enough that you could actually drive on it without fearing for your life. The people of Riverside Junction stood by the roadside and cried when they saw it. Actual tears, because a road might not seem like much to people in the city, but to them, it meant everything. It meant they could get to the hospital. It meant traders could come to their market. It meant they weren't cut off from the world anymore. "He's actually doing it," Elder Martha said to Elder Moses one evening, watching the construction crews work. "He's actually keeping his promises." Elder Moses grunted. He still didn't trust Chief Okonkwo, but even he couldn't deny what was happening. The town was changing. For the first time in 20 years, Riverside Junction felt like it was moving forward instead of dying slowly. But Chief Okonkwo saved his biggest project for last, the school. He didn't try to repair Ibuka Memorial Primary School. He took one look at it and said, "This building is finished. We're starting from scratch." And he did. He bought land on the edge of town and built a new school from the ground up. Proper classrooms with roofs that didn't leak. Windows with actual glass. Desks and chairs that weren't broken. A staff room where teachers could sit and rest. And this was the part that made the children scream with joy. A cafeteria where they would get free lunch every single day. It took 3 months to build. When it was finished, Chief Okonkwo held a grand opening ceremony. He invited everyone in town. He gave a speech about education being the future, about how the children of Riverside Junction deserve the same opportunities as children in Lagos or Abuja. And then he announced that the school would be free. Completely free. No fees. No uniform costs. Nothing. Any child who wanted to come to school could come. The parents of Riverside Junction couldn't believe it. Free school? With free lunch? With actual teachers who would be paid on time? "There has to be a catch," someone whispered in the crowd. But if there was a catch, nobody could see it yet. Mrs. Helen was hired as the head teacher, along with 15 other qualified teachers that Chief Okonkwo brought in from neighboring towns. He paid them well, better than the government had ever paid them, and he paid them on time. Every single month, like clockwork. On the first day of school, 230 children showed up. Children who had dropped out years ago came back. Children who had never gone to school at all came for the first time. They wore mismatched clothes because most of them didn't have uniforms yet, but they came. Amara was one of them. She was almost 18 now, thin and quiet, with those same old eyes that had seen too much. She hadn't been to school in almost a year. Her grandmother had died 6 months ago, and since then, Amara had been completely on her own. She'd been doing odd jobs, washing clothes, fetching water, anything to make a few naira to eat. But when she heard about the free school with free lunch, something inside her woke up. That small, stubborn part of her that still wanted more from life than just surviving. She walked into the new school that first day and stood in the doorway of classroom, just staring. The room was so clean, so bright. There were desks and chairs and a chalkboard that wasn't cracked. There were books, actual books, stacked on a shelf at the back of the room. "Are you coming in, or are you going to stand there all day?" Mrs. Helen said with a smile. Amara walked in slowly, like she was in a dream. She sat down at a desk, and the chair didn't wobble. She opened a book, and the pages weren't torn or missing. And for the first time in a very long time, Amara felt something that she'd almost forgotten existed. Hope. The harvest came 4 months later. The 5 farmers who had agreed to try Chief Okonkwo's new methods stood in their fields and stared at what they'd grown. The yam tubers were bigger than they'd ever been. The cassava was more abundant. The corn stood tall and full. Papa Thomas walked through his field with tears streaming down his face. In 30 years of farming, he'd never seen a harvest like this. Chief Okonkwo had been right. The new techniques had tripled his yield. "Now comes the real test," Chief Okonkwo said when he came to inspect the harvest. "Getting it to market at a good price." He made phone calls to his contacts in Lagos, in Port Harcourt, even to some exporters who shipped food overseas. He negotiated prices that made the farmers' heads spin, prices they'd never dreamed of getting. Then he arranged for trucks to transport everything. The same trucks that had brought the tractors now carried away tons of yams, cassava, and corn. 2 weeks later, Chief Okonkwo called a meeting in the town square. All the farmers came, nervous and excited. This was the moment of truth. After all the work, after all the promises, they were about to find out if this had all been worth it. Chief Okonkwo stood under the irako tree with a ledger in his hands. He called each farmer's name one by one and told them how much their harvest had sold for. Papa Thomas's hands were shaking when his name was called. "Your total harvest sold for 680,000 naira, Chief Okonkwo said. 40% for me is 272,000. 60% for you is 408,000 naira. Papa Thomas's legs nearly gave out. 408,000 naira. That was more money than he'd made in the last 5 years combined. Chief Okonkwo handed him a bank draft right there, in front of everyone. And then he did the same for the other 4 farmers. Each of them walked away with more money than they'd ever held in their lives. The other farmers who had been watching, the ones who'd been too scared or too stubborn to try the new methods, saw this and couldn't believe it. Next season, Chief Okonkwo announced to the crowd, "I'm expanding. Anyone who wants to join the program can join. Same deal. I provide equipment and expertise. You provide the land and labor. We split the profit 60-40 in your favor." By the next planting season, every single farmer in Riverside Junction had signed up. 6 months after Chief Okonkwo became chief, Riverside Junction was a completely different place. The roads were fixed. The school was full. Children who used to stand at junctions selling their bodies were now sitting in classrooms, learning mathematics and English. Farmers who used to struggle to feed their families were now making real money. Money was flowing into the town in a way it never had before. And when money flows into a poor place, everything changes. People started fixing their houses, painting walls that hadn't been painted in years, buying metal roofs to replace the old, leaking thatch. The market became busier because people actually had money to spend. New shops opened, a barber shop, a phone charging station, even a small restaurant. Riverside Junction was coming alive, and everyone knew who to thank. Chief Okonkwo is a godsend, people said. He's our Messiah. He came when we had nothing and gave us everything. Chief Okonkwo would smile humbly whenever he heard things like this. I'm just a man trying to help, he'd say. We're doing this together. But Elder Moses, watching all of this, couldn't shake his unease. Because yes, everything Chief Okonkwo had promised had come true. The farms were producing. The school was running. The roads were fixed. The town was prospering. But Elder Moses kept thinking about what Chief Okonkwo had said that first night. I'm going to build an empire. An empire built on what? The agriculture was profitable, sure. But was it profitable enough to justify everything Chief Okonkwo was spending? The school alone must have cost millions of naira. The roads, the equipment, the salaries, where was all this money really coming from? And more importantly, what was Chief Okonkwo getting out of this that they couldn't see? One evening, Elder Moses shared his concerns with Elder Martha. You're being paranoid, she said, but she didn't sound completely convinced. The man is doing exactly what he said he would do. He's helping us. Why can't you just accept that? Because nothing is free, Elder Moses said. And the more generous a rich man seems, the more suspicious I become. We still don't know what he really wants. Maybe he wants exactly what he said, Elder Martha argued. A place to operate freely without government interference. And he's paying for that freedom by developing the town. What's wrong with that? Elder Moses didn't have a good answer. Because honestly, even if Chief Okonkwo was using them somehow, what did it matter? The children were in school. The farmers were eating. The town was alive again. Maybe some questions were better left unasked. But there were some people in town who were still struggling. The agriculture program only helped people who had land to farm. The school only helped children young enough to still be in primary school. What about the others? What about the young people who'd already dropped out years ago? The 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds who were too old for primary school, but too poor and uneducated for anything else? What about girls like Grace? Grace was 17 now. She'd been standing at the junction for 3 years. 3 years of getting into cars with men who smelled like alcohol and sweat. 3 years of hating herself a little more every single day. She'd watched the town change around her. She'd seen the new school being built. She'd seen the children walking to class with smiles on their faces. She'd seen farmers celebrating their harvests. But none of it touched her. She was still standing at the same junction, wearing the same faded dress, waiting for the same kind of men. Until the day Chief Okonkwo's car pulled up beside her. She'd seen his car around town, of course. Everyone had. But he'd never stopped at the junction before. Rich men like him didn't need to pick up girls from the roadside. They had wives, girlfriends, probably mistresses in the city. So when his window rolled down and he looked at her, Grace's first instinct was fear. Had she done something wrong? Was he going to chase her away? Tell her she was making his nice new town look bad? What's your name? He asked. Grace, sir, she said quietly. How old are you, Grace? 17, sir. He nodded slowly, like he was thinking about something. How long have you been standing here? Grace looked at the ground. 3 years, sir. And in 3 years, how much money have you saved? The question surprised her. I don't know, sir. Maybe 30,000 naira. It wasn't much. Most of what she made went to rent and food. There was never anything left over. 30,000 naira in 3 years, Chief Okonkwo repeated. That's about 800 naira a month. Grace, do you want more than this? She looked up at him, and for a moment, she let herself be honest. Yes, sir, but I don't know how to get it. I can help you, he said, but not for free. Nothing is free. You understand that. She nodded. She understood that better than anyone. Come to my office tomorrow morning, he said. 9 o'clock. Do you know where it is? Yes, sir. Everyone knew where Chief Okonkwo's office was. He'd set it up in one of the old buildings in town and renovated it. Good. Come on time. And Grace. He looked at her seriously. This is a chance. Don't waste it. He drove away, leaving Grace standing there, confused and curious, and, though she tried not to be, hopeful. What could Chief Okonkwo possibly want with her? She would find out the next day, and when she did, everything would change. Grace didn't sleep that night. She lay on the thin mattress in her tiny rented room, staring at the ceiling, wondering what Chief Okonkwo wanted. Her mind went through 100 different possibilities. Maybe he wanted her to work at the school. Maybe he needed someone to clean his office. Maybe he just wanted to lecture her about stopping the prostitution, about how she was ruining the town's new reputation. Or maybe he wanted what all the other men wanted. That thought made her stomach turn, but she pushed it away. Chief Okonkwo wasn't like the other men. He was building schools, helping farmers. He was supposed to be different. At 8:30 the next morning, she put on her best dress, which wasn't saying much, and walked to Chief Okonkwo's office. Her heart was beating so fast she could hear it in her ears. The office was in a 2-story building that used to be abandoned. Chief Okonkwo had fixed it up, painted it white, put in new windows. There was even a sign outside. Okonkwo Agricultural Enterprises. A woman sat at a desk in the front room. She was young, maybe 25, and dressed nicely in a blouse and skirt. She looked up when Grace walked in. "Can I help you?" the woman asked. Her voice wasn't unkind, but it wasn't warm either. She was looking at Grace's cheap dress, her worn shoes, judging her. "Chief Okonkwo told me to come," Grace said quietly. At 9 o'clock, the woman's eyebrows went up like she was surprised. "Your name?" "Grace." The woman picked up a phone on her desk and pressed a button. "Sir, there's a girl here named Grace." She listened for a moment, then hung up. "He'll see you now?" "Upstairs, second door on the left." Grace climbed the stairs slowly. Her hands were sweating. The second door on the left was open. Chief Okonkwo sat behind a large desk, writing something in a notebook. He looked up when she appeared in the doorway. "Grace. Good. You came on time. I like that." He gestured to a chair across from his desk. "Sit." She sat, perching on the edge of the chair like she might need to run at any moment. Chief Okonkwo put down his pen and looked at her. Really looked at her. Not the way the men at the junction looked at her, like she was a piece of meat they were thinking about buying. This was different. He was studying her like she was a problem he was trying to solve. "How much school did you finish?" he asked. "Primary 5, sir. I dropped out when I was 15. Can you read and write?" "Yes, sir. Not very well, but yes." "Can you do mathematics?" "A little, sir." He nodded, still watching her. "You're young. You're not stupid. So why are you standing at a junction, selling your body, instead of doing something better with your life?" The bluntness of the question made Grace flinch. But she learned a long time ago that honesty was easier than lying. "Because I don't have any other choice, sir," she said. "I tried. After my mother left, I tried to stay in school, but I had no money for food or rent. I tried to find work, but nobody hires a 15-year-old girl with only primary 5 education. The junction was the only place that would take me." "And you've been there for 3 years," Chief Okonkwo said. 3 years, and you have nothing to show for it except 30,000 naira. Do you know why?" Grace shook her head. "Because you're selling yourself too cheap," Chief Okonkwo said. 200 naira per man? 300 for something special? That's nothing. That's insulting. You're worth more than that." Grace didn't know what to say to that. No one had ever told her she was worth anything. "I can help you make real money," Chief Okonkwo continued. "Not 200 naira here and there. Real money. Thousands. Tens of thousands. More than you've ever imagined." "How, sir?" Grace asked, though part of her already knew. There was only one way a man like him could help a girl like her make that kind of money. "I have connections," Chief Okonkwo said. "Rich men. Businessmen from Lagos, Port Harcourt, even from overseas sometimes. They come to Nigeria for business, and when they're done with their meetings, they want entertainment. Company. Beautiful young women who can talk to them, laugh with them, make them feel special." There it was. The truth she'd been expecting. "You want me to sleep with them?" Grace said flatly. "I want you to entertain them," Chief Okonkwo corrected. "What you do in private is between you and them. I'm not forcing anyone to do anything. I'm just creating opportunities." "It's still prostitution," Grace said. "It is," Chief Okonkwo agreed, not even trying to deny it. "But it's better prostitution. Instead of standing at a junction waiting for any drunk driver who stops, you'll be meeting professional men in nice hotels. Instead of 200 naira, you'll be making 20,000, 50,000, sometimes more." Grace's breath caught. 20,000 naira? For one night? "But," Chief Okonkwo continued, holding up a finger, "there are conditions. This isn't the junction. You can't show up looking like..." He gestured at her worn dress. "Like this. These men are paying for class. For sophistication. So first, you have to go back to school." "School?" Grace repeated, confused. "I'm opening evening classes," Chief Okonkwo explained. "For young people like you who dropped out but still want to learn. You'll study English, mathematics, etiquette, how to have a conversation, how to dress properly, how to carry yourself. You'll become educated, refined." "Why does that matter?" Grace asked. If they just want sex, why do I need to know mathematics?" Chief Okonkwo smiled. "Because these men don't just want sex. They can get sex anywhere. What they want is the fantasy. The fantasy that they're with an intelligent, sophisticated young woman who's interested in them. You need to be able to talk about business, about politics, about their lives. You need to make them feel special. And the better you are at that, the more they'll pay." It made sense in a twisted way. And Grace had to admit, going to school again, learning things, being something more than just a body at a junction. That was appealing. "And if I do this," she asked carefully, "how much do I keep?" "We split it," Chief Okonkwo said. 50-50. I arrange the meetings, provide the venue, handle all the logistics. You show up, do the work, and we split whatever they pay." "That's not fair," Grace said, surprising herself with her boldness. "I'm the one doing the work. I should get more." Chief Okonkwo laughed, a real laugh, like he was genuinely pleased. "Good. You have a spine. I like that." He leaned back in his chair. "Fine. 60-40. You get 60%. But," he added, "I'm paying for your school fees, your food, your clothes, your housing. All of that comes out of my share, not yours." "Deal." 60% of 20,000 naira was 12,000. In one night, she could make more than she usually made in months. "Where would I live?" Grace asked. "I have a house," Chief Okonkwo said. "I'm turning it into a dormitory for girls in the program. You'll have a room, a bed, 3 meals a day. It's not a palace, but it's safe and clean. And I have to go to school every evening, Monday through Friday. If you skip class, you're out of the program." Grace thought about it, really thought about it. This was still prostitution. She wouldn't be standing at a junction anymore, but she'd still be selling her body. Just a richer man in nicer places. But she'd also be going to school, learning, improving herself, making real money that she could save, that could maybe someday help her do something different with her life. "Can I think about it?" she asked. "No," Chief Okonkwo said, and his voice was suddenly hard. "This is the offer. Right now. Yes or no? If you walk out that door without saying yes, the offer disappears forever. I don't chase anyone. I don't beg. You want a better life? Say yes. You want to keep standing at the junction for 200 naira? Say no." Grace looked at him, at his expensive clothes, his confident smile, his office with its nice furniture and clean floors. She thought about her tiny room with its leaking roof, about the junction where she stood every night, about the men who treated her like garbage. She thought about what he was offering. School, a real room, real money, a chance to be something more than what she was. "Yes," she said. Chief Okonkwo's smile came back. "Good. You start Monday. Be here at 6 p.m. for your first class." "And Grace," he looked at her seriously, "you can change your mind anytime. This is your choice. Always. But if you stay in the program, you follow the rules. You go to class. You work hard. You respect yourself and respect the work. Understood?" "Yes, sir." "Good. Now go to the woman downstairs. Her name is Joy. She'll take you to the house, show you your room, get you settled in." Grace stood up, her legs shaky. As she walked to the door, Chief Okonkwo called after her. "Grace, welcome to your new life." Over the next 3 months, Chief Okonkwo recruited 29 more girls. Amara was one of them. She'd been doing well in school. The new school Chief Okonkwo had built. She was 19 now, smart and eager to learn. But no matter how well she did in school, she still had the same problem. No money. No food. No place to live except the tiny room she could barely afford. One day, after class, Mrs. Helen asked her to stay behind. "Amara," she said gently, "I've noticed you're not eating lunch." The school provided free lunch for all students. But Amara had been giving hers away to younger children who looked hungrier than she was. "I'm not hungry, Ma," Amara lied. Mrs. Helen looked at her with sad, knowing eyes. "Amara, I know things are hard for you. I know you're alone, but there might be a way I can help." "How, Ma?" Mrs. Helen hesitated, and in that hesitation, Amara saw something that made her stomach drop. "Guilt. Chief Okonkwo has a program," Mrs. Helen said carefully, "for girls who are struggling. He provides housing, food, clothing, and even extra education. Evening classes where you can learn things that will help you in the future." "What does he want in return?" Amara asked. She was 19, but she'd been taking care of herself for years. She knew nothing was free. Mrs. Helen looked away. "You'd have to talk to him about the details." "But Amara, I've seen girls in the program. They're doing well. They're healthy, they're learning, they're safe. It might be a good opportunity for you." Amara understood what Mrs. Helen wasn't saying. She'd heard rumors about Chief Okonkwo's program. Whispers in the market about girls who used to stand at the junction and now lived in a nice house. About rich men from the city who came to town for fundraisers and left very generous donations. She wasn't stupid. She knew what the program really was. But Mrs. Helen was right. The girls in the program did look better. They had clean clothes. They looked fed. They walked with their heads up instead of staring at the ground. And the choice wasn't really between a good life and a bad life. The choice was between standing at a junction for 200 naira or joining Chief Okonkwo's program for thousands. Either way, she'd be selling herself. At least this way, she'd be going to school too. "I'll talk to him," Amara said quietly. Mrs. Helen nodded, and Amara could see the relief in her eyes, but also the guilt, because Mrs. Helen knew what she was sending this 90-year-old girl toward, and she hated herself for it. But what choice did any of them have? Sarah joined the program too, but for different reasons. She was 18, and unlike Amara and Grace, she had parents. Her father, Papa Ibrahim, was one of the farmers who joined Chief Okonkwo's agricultural program. He was making good money now, better than he'd ever made before. But he had 7 children, and Sarah was the oldest daughter. And in their culture, when a daughter turned 17 or 18, you started thinking about marriage. Find her a good husband who could take care of her, one less mouth to feed. Papa Ibrahim had already started talking to families, looking for a suitable match. There was a man in the next village, a widower in his 40s who was looking for a young wife. He was willing to pay a good bride price. Sarah heard about this and cried for 3 days straight. She didn't want to get married. She wanted to stay in school. She wanted to learn. She dreamed of maybe becoming a teacher someday, like Mrs. Helen. But girls like her didn't get to dream. They got married and had babies and spent the rest of their lives cooking and cleaning and getting pregnant again and again until their bodies gave out. Unless she'd heard about Chief Okonkwo's program. She knew what it was. She wasn't naive. But here's what she thought. If she joined the program, she could make her own money. She could pay her father what he would have gotten from the bride price. She could buy her freedom, and she'd be going to school, learning, becoming educated in a way that most married women never got to be. So she went to Chief Okonkwo herself, walked right into his office and said, "I want to join your program." Chief Okonkwo looked at her with those calculating eyes. "You have parents. They know you're here." "No, sir." "Then you can't join. I don't take girls whose parents don't know. Too much trouble." "I'll tell them," Sarah said quickly. "I'll make them understand." "Understand what? That you want to prostitute yourself instead of getting married?" Chief Okonkwo shook his head. "Your father will never agree to that." "He will if you pay him," Sarah said. She'd thought this through. "You're paying for our housing, our food, our school. That costs money. Just pay my father that money instead. Tell him it's for my education. Tell him you're sponsoring me to go to secondary school in the city. He doesn't need to know about the rest." Chief Okonkwo stared at her for a long moment. Then he laughed. "You're smart. Smarter than most adults I know. How old are you?" 18, sir." 18. He shook his head. "You're too young. I'm old enough to get married to a 40-year-old man," Sarah shot back. "How is that different?" Chief Okonkwo had no answer for that, because she was right. In their culture, even 17 was considered old enough for marriage, old enough to have sex with a husband. How is his program really any different? "Fine," he said finally, "but the evening classes are mandatory. And if your grades drop, you're out. I'm not running a charity. The girls in my program need to be smart, educated, able to hold conversations. If you can't do that, you're useless to me." "I'll study hard," Sarah promised. "I'll be the best student you have." And she was. Because unlike Grace or Amara, who saw the program as just a way to survive, Sarah saw it as something more. She saw it as her escape route, her way to get educated enough that someday she wouldn't need Chief Okonkwo or any man. She'd be able to stand on her own. By the end of the year, Chief Okonkwo had 30 girls in his program. He housed them all in a large building he'd renovated specifically for this purpose. It had been an old hotel once, back when Riverside Junction was a busier place. Now it was a dormitory. Each girl had her own small room with a bed, a desk, and a wardrobe. They ate together in a common dining room. They studied together in the evenings. Chief Okonkwo hired teachers for the evening classes. Real teachers who taught them English grammar, mathematics, current affairs, even some basic business concepts. He hired a woman named Annie Rose to teach them etiquette, how to walk, how to talk, how to sit, how to eat at a fancy restaurant. These men are paying for sophistication, Annie Rose would say during her lessons. They want to feel like they're with a lady, not a prostitute. So you act like a lady. You speak properly. You laugh at their jokes, even if they're not funny. You make them feel important. And you never, ever let them see that you're doing this for money. You make them believe you want to be there. It was all so calculated, so mechanical. But the girls learned because they had to, because the better they were at the act, the more money they made. The first fundraiser happened 2 months after Grace joined the program. Chief Okonkwo called it a charity gala. He invited wealthy businessmen from Lagos and Port Harcourt, told them he was raising money to develop Riverside Junction. There would be dinner, drinks, entertainment. The girls were the entertainment. They dressed in nice clothes that Chief Okonkwo had bought for them. They served food and drinks to the guests. They smiled and laughed and flirted. And then, quietly, discreetly, they would disappear into rooms upstairs with the men who slipped them business card with hotel room numbers written on the back. After the event, Chief Okonkwo collected all the donations the men had made. Then he called the girls together and divided the money. Grace made 45,000 naira that night. Her share, after the 60-40 split, was 27,000. She held the money in her hands and cried. Not because she was ashamed, though she was, but because it was more money than she'd ever held in her life. More money than she'd made in an entire year at the junction. See, Chief Okonkwo said, watching them count their money. This is better, isn't it? Better than the junction. Better than getting married to some old man. Here, you're making real money. You're going to school. You're improving yourselves. This is a good life. And the terrible thing was, he was right. It was better. Not good, but better. The girls told themselves this over and over. At least they were safe. At least they were eating. At least they were learning. At least the men treated them better than the men at the junction had. At least. They built their whole lives on at least. The fundraisers became regular events. Once a month, sometimes twice. Chief Okonkwo would bring in wealthy men from the city, and the girls would entertain them. The donations poured in hundreds of thousands of naira each event. Chief Okonkwo took his 40%, which was still a massive amount. But he also genuinely did use some of the money for the town. He funded more improvements to the school. He helped more farmers get equipment. He fixed more roads. So the people of Riverside Junction loved him even more. They saw a man who was bringing prosperity to their forgotten town. They saw the fancy cars that came for the fundraisers. They saw the money flowing in. They chose not to see what was really happening in those hotel rooms. Or maybe they saw it and just didn't care. Because the town was prospering. Their children were eating. The roads were smooth. What did it matter if a few poor girls were selling themselves? They would have been doing it anyway, right? At least this way it was organized, clean, profitable. At least. The girls themselves never complained. How could they? This was the best opportunity most of them would ever get. They were making more money than their parents had ever made. They were going to school. They had food and shelter and safety. Yes, they had to sleep with strange men. Yes, they had to pretend to enjoy it. Yes, they sometimes went to their rooms afterward and scrubbed themselves raw in the shower, trying to feel clean again. But it was still better than the alternative. Amara, who was now 18, had saved 60,000 naira. More money than she'd ever imagined having. She kept it hidden under her mattress and counted it every night before bed. Someday, she told herself, she'd have enough to leave, to go to the city and start over, to be something other than this. Someday, Sarah, who was 19 now, had convinced herself that this was temporary. She was learning so much in the evening classes. She was reading books she'd never had access to before. She was having conversations about politics and business and the world beyond Riverside Junction. The sex was just something she had to endure to get the education. Once she was educated enough, smart enough, she'd find another way. Someday. Grace, who was 19, had stopped thinking about someday. She'd been doing this for over a year now, and the shame had faded into numbness. She'd learned to separate herself from what was happening to her body. When she was with a client, she wasn't really there. She was somewhere else in her mind, floating above it all, waiting for it to be over so she could collect her money. This was her life now, and it wasn't the worst life. It was clean. It was organized. It paid well. It was fine. She told herself it was fine. They all told themselves it was fine. And for a while it was, until the day the mayor came. Mayor Ezekiel Adams had been the mayor of the region for 8 years. And in those 8 years, he perfected a simple system. Take the money meant for development, pocket most of it, use a little bit for projects so it looked like he was doing something, and blame any failures on government bureaucracy. It had worked perfectly for almost a decade, until Riverside Junction started thriving without him. He first noticed something was wrong when his assistant showed him the quarterly agricultural reports. Production from Riverside Junction had tripled in less than a year. That's impossible, Mayor Adams said, staring at the numbers. That town is dead. I've been routing their development funds to other projects for years. They can't be producing this much. Maybe you should go see for yourself, sir, his assistant suggested. So Mayor Adams drove out to Riverside Junction for the first time in 5 years. And what he saw made his blood run cold. The roads were smooth. The roads he was supposed to have fixed with the 20 million naira he'd allocated 3 years ago, but had instead used to build himself a new house in the city. There was a new school, a big, beautiful building with glass windows and painted walls. A school he was supposed to have built with the 15 million naira he'd allocated 2 years ago, but had instead used to buy his wife a new car. The town was alive, busy, people were smiling, children were playing. The market was full. This wasn't supposed to happen. Riverside Junction was supposed to stay poor and forgotten. That was how the system worked. He took their money, they stayed poor, and nobody questioned anything because they were too defeated to fight back. But somehow, someone had changed the game. Mayor Adams went straight to the town square and demanded to see the elders. When they gathered, his smile was wide and friendly, but his eyes were cold. Elder Moses, Elder Martha, he said, shaking their hands like they were old friends. It's been too long. The town looks wonderful. Simply wonderful. You've done amazing things here. We didn't do it, Elder Moses said carefully. Chief Okonkwo did. He's been investing his own money, building roads, schools, helping farmers. Chief Okonkwo. Mayor Adams's smile faltered. Who is Chief Okonkwo? They explained how the businessman had come to town, how he'd become chief, how he'd been developing the area with his own resources. Mayor Adams listened with a smile on his face and rage burning in his chest. This man, this stranger, had come into his territory and started building things without asking permission, without cutting him in? Well, Mayor Adams said when they finished, this is all very impressive. Very impressive indeed. But there's a small problem. What problem? Elder Martha asked. Taxes, Mayor Adams said simply. All this agricultural production, all this business activity, it needs to be taxed. It's the law. You're part of this region, which means you pay taxes to the regional government. We don't have money for taxes, Elder Moses said. Everything we make goes back into improving the town. That's not how it works, Mayor Adams said, his voice getting harder. The government has expenses, salaries to pay, infrastructure to maintain. You can't just opt out of paying taxes. You mean the same government that took our money and gave us nothing? Elder Martha said, her voice sharp. The same government that let our school collapse and our roads turn to dirt? That government wants taxes now that we're finally doing well. Mayor Adams's smile disappeared completely. Watch your tone, old woman. I am a mayor of this region. I represent the government, and the government requires. We know what you require, Elder Martha interrupted. You want your cut. You want to take from us the way you've been taking for years. Well, the answer is no. You can't say no, Mayor Adams said. This isn't a negotiation. Then arrest us, Elder Moses said quietly. Go ahead. Arrest a town of poor people for not paying taxes. See how that looks in the newspapers. Mayor Adams stared at them. These people had changed. They used to be defeated, broken, easy to control. Now, they had hope, and hope made people dangerous. I'll be back, he said, standing up. And next time, I'm bringing the authorities. He stormed to his car, but before he left, he demanded to meet this Chief Okonkwo. Chief Okonkwo received him in his office with perfect politeness, offered him a drink, asked about his journey, all very civilized. "Let me be direct," Mayor Adams said, once the pleasantries were over. "You've done good work here. Impressive work. But you're operating in my territory, and we need to come to an understanding." "What kind of understanding?" Chief Okonkwo asked, though he already knew. "The town is producing crops worth millions of naira. That needs to be taxed. But I understand you've invested a lot here. You spent your own money, so I'm willing to be flexible." Mayor Adams leaned forward. "You pay me 20% of the agricultural profits directly. I'll handle the government paperwork, make sure everything looks legitimate. You keep operating however you want, and I look the other way. Everyone wins." Chief Okonkwo was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. "No." Mayor Adams blinked. "Excuse me?" "I said no. I'm not paying you anything. You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," Chief Okonkwo interrupted. "You've been stealing from this town for years. Money that was supposed to build their roads, their schools, their clinics, you took it all. You let children go hungry so you could buy yourself fancy cars. And now that someone actually helped them, you want to steal from them again." Mayor Adams's face turned red. "You can't talk to me like that. I am the mayor of a region you've been robbing blind," Chief Okonkwo finished. "I've done my research, Mayor Adams. I know about the 20 million naira for roads that were never built, the 15 million for schools that never got repaired, the 10 million for the clinic that doesn't exist. Should I go on?" "Those are serious accusations," Mayor Adams said, but his voice shook slightly. "They're facts," Chief Okonkwo said, "and if you push me, I'll make them public. I'll give everything to the newspapers. I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what you've been doing." Mayor Adams stood up, his hands trembling with rage. "You're making a very big mistake. A very big mistake. I have friends in the government. Powerful friends. You think you can just come here and take over? You think there won't be consequences?" "Get out of my office," Chief Okonkwo said calmly, "and tell your powerful friend that Riverside Junction is off limits. We're handling our own affairs now." Mayor Adams left, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. And Chief Okonkwo sat back in his chair, knowing he'd just made a very dangerous enemy. Mayor Adams drove back to the city in a rage. How dare that man threaten him? How dare those villagers refuse to pay taxes? Did they not understand how things worked? But the truth was, Chief Okonkwo had him cornered. If those documents about the stolen funds went public, his career was over. He'd probably go to prison. Unless he destroyed Chief Okonkwo first. Mayor Adams made phone calls to friends in the police, to contacts in the state government, to a journalist he knew who owed him favors. "I need you to investigate something," he told the journalist. "There's a man in Riverside Junction, Chief Adebayo Okonkwo. He's running some kind of operation there. I think he's involved in human trafficking." "Trafficking?" the journalist asked. "That's a serious claim. What's your evidence?" "Young girls," Mayor Adams said. "Lots of them, living in a house he owns. He runs these fundraisers where he brings in wealthy men from the city. Use your imagination." The journalist was quiet for a moment. "I'll look into it." "Do more than look," Mayor Adams said. "Investigate. Dig. Find out what he's really doing. And when you publish it, make sure it's national news. I want everyone in Nigeria to know what kind of man Chief Okonkwo really is." He hung up and smiled. If he couldn't take Chief Okonkwo's money, he'd take everything else. The investigation started quietly. The journalist came to Riverside Junction pretending to do a human interest story about the town's transformation. He interviewed farmers, teachers, elders. Everyone sang Chief Okonkwo's praises. But then he started asking about the fundraisers, about the girls in the dormitory, about the wealthy men who visited from the city. People got uncomfortable. They changed the subject. They said they didn't know anything about that, which told the journalist everything he needed to know. He talked to drivers who transported guests to the fundraisers. He talked to hotel workers in neighboring towns who'd seen Chief Okonkwo's girls with wealthy men. He pieced together enough information to write a story. But he needed testimony. He needed someone to go on record. So he went to the dormitory and tried to talk to the girls. Grace answered the door. She was 20 now, poised and well-spoken. The evening classes had taught her how to carry herself with confidence. "Can I help you?" she asked. "I'm a journalist," the man said. "I'm writing a story about Chief Okonkwo. I'd like to ask you some questions." "About what?" "About what he's doing here. About the fundraisers. About," he lowered his voice, "about what you girls are being forced to do." Grace's face went cold. "We're not being forced to do anything." "Come on," the journalist said. "You don't have to protect him. If he's making you do things you don't want to do, if he's trafficking you, I can help. I can expose him. You'll be safe." "Safe?" Grace laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "You want to talk about safe? Where were you 3 years ago when I was standing at a junction selling myself for 200 naira? Where were you when I was hungry and alone and had nowhere to go?" "I understand you're grateful. You don't understand anything," Grace interrupted. "Chief Okonkwo gave me a chance when nobody else would. He gave me an education, a home, a way to make real money instead of pennies. You want to destroy that? Why? So you can write your story and win some award?" "If he's exploiting you, he's paying me," Grace said firmly. 60% of everything I make. That's more than any pimp would give. That's more than any husband would let me keep. This is my choice. Mine. And you have no right to take it away from me." She slammed the door in his face. The journalist tried other girls. He got the same response every time. They defended Chief Okonkwo. They said they weren't being forced. They said this was better than anything else they'd had. But the journalist had been doing this work for 20 years. He knew what exploitation looked like. These girls had been groomed, manipulated. They'd been given just enough education, food, safety to make them complicit in their own abuse. He wrote the story anyway. The headline read, "Businessman runs sex trafficking ring disguised as charity." It ran in one of Nigeria's biggest newspapers. Within hours, it was everywhere. Television news picked it up. Radio stations discussed it. Social media exploded. The story painted Chief Okonkwo as a monster, a predator who'd taken advantage of poor, desperate girls, who'd hidden behind charity work while running a prostitution ring. The journalist interviewed experts on human trafficking who explained how this was a classic pattern. Give victims just enough to make them dependent, then exploit them. The public was outraged. How dare this man prey on vulnerable children? How dare he use poverty as a weapon to force girls into prostitution? Protests erupted in Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt. People demanded Chief Okonkwo's arrest. They demanded justice for the girls. But in Riverside Junction, the reaction was very different. The people of the town rallied around Chief Okonkwo. They held their own protests defending him. Elder Moses gave interviews saying the journalist had gotten it wrong, that Chief Okonkwo had saved their town, that the girls were not being trafficked. The girls themselves tried to speak out. Grace, Amara, Sarah, they all gave interviews saying they weren't victims, that they'd chosen this life, that it was better than the alternatives. But nobody wanted to hear it. The narrative had already been said. Evil businessman exploits poor girls. The truth was more complicated than that, but complicated truths don't make good headlines. The government, pressured by public outrage and eager to distract from their own failures, sent investigators to Riverside Junction. They raided Chief Okonkwo's office. They seized his financial records. They interviewed everyone they could find. And what they found was complicated. Yes, Chief Okonkwo was running prostitution operations disguised as fundraisers. But no, he wasn't forcing anyone. The girls all confirmed they'd joined voluntarily. Yes, he was profiting from their labor, but he was also genuinely investing in the town. The roads were real. The school was real. The agricultural program was real. Yes, some of the girls were very young as 17 when they joined. But in Nigeria, 17-year-olds get married. They have sex with their husbands. The law is murky on what counts as exploitation when cultural norms already permit what would be considered child abuse in other countries. The investigators didn't know what to do with this. It wasn't the clear-cut trafficking case they'd expected. But then Mayor Adams made a phone call to someone in the federal government. And that person made a phone call to someone else. And suddenly, It didn't matter how complicated the truth was. Orders came down. Arrest Chief. They came for him on a Tuesday morning. 20 soldiers in full riot gear, like he was a warlord instead of a businessman. They surrounded his office. They kicked down the door, even though it wasn't locked. Chief Okonkwo was sitting at his desk, completely calm, like he'd been expecting this. Chief Adebayo Okonkwo, the commanding officer, said, "You're under arrest for human trafficking, child exploitation, and running an illegal prostitution ring." "I'd like to call my lawyer," Chief Okonkwo said. "You can call him from the station." They handcuffed him and let him out. The whole town had gathered to watch. Some people were crying. The elders stood in a line, their faces hard and angry. "This is wrong," Elder Martha shouted. "He helped us. He saved this town." "He's a criminal," one of the soldiers said. "The real criminals are in the government." Elder Moses yelled, "The ones who stole from us for years. Why aren't you arresting them?" But the soldiers didn't answer. They just pushed Chief Okonkwo into the back of a van and drove away. The girls from the dormitory ran after the van, crying, begging them to stop. Grace fell to her knees in the middle of the road, sobbing, because they all knew what this meant. Without Chief Okonkwo, the program was over. The dormitory would close. The evening classes would stop. The fundraisers would end. Their better life, their education, their safety, their income, all of it was about to disappear, and they would go back to having nothing. The trial of Chief Adebayo Okonkwo lasted 3 months and became the biggest news story in Nigeria that year. His lawyers were expensive, the kind of lawyers who wore Italian suits and had defended governors and oil tycoons. They came prepared. They brought documents, evidence, receipts for every naira spent on the town's development. Testimony from engineers and contractors proving that Chief Okonkwo had genuinely invested millions into Riverside Junction. And they brought the financial records that showed exactly what Mayor Ezekiel Adams had done. 20 million naira allocated for roads in 2011, never built. The money had been transferred to a company owned by the mayor's brother-in-law. 15 million naira allocated for school repairs in 2012, never done. The money had been used to purchase 3 properties in Lagos, all registered under the mayor's wife's maiden name. 10 million naira for a medical clinic in 2013, it didn't exist. The money had simply vanished into private accounts. Chief Okonkwo's lawyers laid it all out in court, document by document, transaction by transaction. They proved that Mayor Adams had stolen over 60 million naira mint for Riverside Junction's development over a 5-year period. This, Chief Okonkwo's lead lawyer said, standing before the judge, is why my client went to Riverside Junction in the first place. Because the government had abandoned these people. Because thieves in positions of power had stolen their future. My client saw an opportunity, yes, but he also saw people suffering. And unlike the government, unlike Mayor Adams, my client actually helped them. The courtroom erupted in applause. The judge had to bang his gavel to restore order. Mayor Adams sat in the witness section, sweating through his expensive suit. His lawyers tried to object, tried to say that his alleged corruption wasn't relevant to Chief Okonkwo's case. But the damage was done. Everyone could see it now. The mayor had stolen millions, and when someone finally helped the town he'd robbed, he'd tried to destroy that person to protect himself. Then came the testimony from the girls. Grace went first. She was 20 now, and she walked to the witness stand with her head high. She wore a simple but neat dress that she'd bought with her own money. She looked nothing like the desperate, hungry girl who used to stand at the junction. "Miss Grace," the prosecutor said, "Chief Okonkwo recruited you into his program when you were 17 years old. Is that correct?" "Yes, sir. And this program involved prostitution, correct? You had sexual relations with men in exchange for money?" "Yes, sir. And Chief Okonkwo took 40% of that money?" "Yes, sir." The prosecutor smiled, thinking he had her. "So you were exploited, used, trafficked?" Grace looked at him with those steady eyes that had seen too much. "No, sir. No. I was standing at a junction selling my body for 200 naira when Chief Okonkwo found me," Grace said clearly. "I had no food, no home, no future. He offered me a choice. He said I could join his program, get an education, live in a safe place, make real money, or I could keep doing what I was doing. I chose his program. Nobody forced me. But you were 17, the prosecutor argued. A child. You couldn't make that choice. Then why could I make the choice to stand at a junction? Grace shot back. Why could I make the choice to sleep with drunk men for pennies? Why was that choice acceptable, but choosing something better wasn't? The prosecutor had no answer. Chief Okonkwo gave me something nobody else would. Grace continued, her voice getting stronger. An education. I can read now. Really read. I can do mathematics. I can speak proper English. I have money saved, money I earned and kept. Before him, I had nothing. Nothing. And now you want to punish him for helping me. Amara testified next. She was 19 now, small for her age, but fierce. I was 19 when I joined the program, she said. I know that sounds bad. I know people think that's wrong. But you know what else happened when I was 19? I was living alone, taking care of myself, trying to find food every day. I was already selling things at the market, doing whatever I could to survive. The only difference is that Chief Okonkwo's program paid better and sent me to school. Did it bother you, the prosecutor asked carefully, that you had to have sex with adult men? Amara looked at him like he was stupid. Of course it bothered me. You think I enjoyed it? But life isn't about doing things you enjoy when you're poor. Life is about surviving. And Chief Okonkwo's way of surviving was better than any other option I had. One by one, all 30 girls testified. Every single one said the same thing. Yes, they'd been in the program. Yes, they'd had sex with men for money. Yes, Chief Okonkwo had taken a percentage. And no, they were not victims. They were survivors who'd made the best choice available to them. The prosecution tried to argue that the girls had been groomed, manipulated, brainwashed into defending their abuser. But the girls wouldn't budge. They defended Chief Okonkwo fiercely. Because to them, he wasn't an abuser. He was the only person who'd ever actually helped them when everyone else, the government, the church, society, had turned their backs. The judge listened to everything. The evidence of the mayor's corruption, the testimony of the girls, the documentation of Chief Okonkwo's investments in the town, the arguments from both sides. And in the end, he made a decision that satisfied no one. Chief Adebayo Okonkwo, the judge said, looking down at him from the bench, the evidence shows that you did genuinely help Riverside Junction. You invested your own money. You built infrastructure. You helped farmers prosper. For that, I commend you. Chief Okonkwo's lawyers started to smile. However, the judge continued. You also ran an illegal prostitution operation. You profited from the sexual exploitation of young girls, some as young as 17. Regardless of whether they consented, regardless of whether they benefited, what you did was against the law. And the law exists for a reason, to protect the vulnerable from those with power. The smiles faded. You took advantage of their desperation, the judge said. You gave them an education and shelter and food. Yes. But you did so in order to make them dependent on you, in order to profit from their bodies. That is exploitation. That is wrong, and it cannot be allowed to stand. As for Mayor Ezekiel Adams, the judge turned to look at the mayor. The evidence of your corruption is clear and damning. You stole from the people you were supposed to serve. You created the conditions that made Chief Okonkwo's intervention necessary. Your crimes are, in many ways, worse than his. Mayor Adams went pale. However, the judge said, those crimes are not the subject of this trial. They will be investigated separately. For now, I am sentencing Chief Adebayo Okonkwo to 20 years in prison for operating an illegal prostitution ring and for the exploitation of minors. The courtroom exploded. People from Riverside Junction who had traveled to attend the trial jumped to their feet, shouting. The girls started crying. Chief Okonkwo's lawyers immediately began talking about appeals. But the judge banged his gavel. Order. This court is adjourned. And just like that, it was over. Chief Adebayo Okonkwo was led away in handcuffs. The man who had built a town, who had saved hundreds of people, who had created prosperity where there had been nothing. He was going to prison for 20 years. The girls stood outside the courthouse, crying and holding each other. Their savior was gone. Their future was uncertain again. But the story wasn't over yet. Mayor Ezekiel Adams watched Chief Okonkwo being taken away and smiled. True, the trial had exposed his corruption. True, people were angry. But he'd been in politics long enough to know how this would play out. 3 weeks after the trial, a committee was formed to investigate the mayor's alleged embezzlement. The committee was made up of politicians who were friends with the mayor or who owed him favors, or who were engaged in their own corruption and didn't want to set a precedent of actually punishing people for it. The investigation lasted 2 months. In the end, they concluded that while there were irregularities in the mayor's handling of funds, there was insufficient evidence to prove criminal intent. They recommended he sign a bond promising not to misuse funds in the future. Mayor Adams signed the bond. He made a public apology. He promised to do better. And that was it. No jail time. No fine. Nothing. He kept his position as mayor. And the first thing he did was go to Riverside Junction to collect what he believed he was owed. The town had changed in the months since Chief Okonkwo's arrest. The dormitory had closed. The girls had scattered. Some went back to their families. Some stayed in the rooms they'd been renting with their saved money. Some left town entirely. The evening classes had stopped. The fundraisers had ended. The agricultural program was still running because the farmers now knew how to use the equipment, but without Chief Okonkwo's market connections, they were making less money. The town was still better than it had been before Chief Okonkwo arrived. The roads were still smooth. The school was still standing. The farmers still had tractors. But the energy was gone. The hope was fading. They tasted prosperity and then had it snatched away. Mayor Adams arrived with a convoy of government officials and accountants. He gathered the elders under the Irako tree, just like Chief Okonkwo had done years ago. But this time, there was no friendly smile, no generous offers, just cold, bureaucratic efficiency. Riverside Junction has been operating outside the government tax system for 3 years, Mayor Adams announced. That ends today. All agricultural exports will now be subject to regional taxation. 25% of all profits. 25%. Papa Thomas stood up, his weathered face twisted in anger. That's robbery. That's the law, Mayor Adams said smoothly. Chief Okonkwo was a criminal who operated illegally. Now things will be done properly, through official channels, with proper taxation. You mean you'll take our money the way you've always taken it? Elder Martha said bitterly. I mean, Mayor Adams said, his voice hard, that you'll pay what you owe to the government. The same government that owns these roads you're driving on. The same government that provides security and infrastructure. You didn't build these roads. Elder Moses shouted. Chief Okonkwo built them with his own money. Roads built on government land, Mayor Adams countered, which makes them government property, which means you pay taxes to use them. It's very simple. The elders wanted to fight. They wanted to refuse. But they'd seen what happened when you fought the government. Chief Okonkwo was in prison. They were just poor villagers. What could they do? So they signed the papers. They agreed to the taxes. Mayor Adams took over the agricultural program. He didn't invest in new equipment or provide market connections like Chief Okonkwo had. He just took 25% of every harvest and sent it to the regional government office. Where that money went, nobody knew. Probably into the same pockets that had swallowed the development funds for years. The farmers still made money, more than they'd made before Chief Okonkwo arrived, but less than they'd made while he was helping them. In every harvest season, they looked at that 25% being taken away and felt sick with anger. Because they knew the truth. They were being robbed, just like they'd always been robbed. The only difference was that now it was legal. Mayor Adams had won. He destroyed the man who'd challenged him, taken over the profitable operation, and walked away without punishment for his crimes. The system had protected itself. But what about the girls? The 30 girls who'd been in Chief Okonkwo's program scattered in different directions, but their stories all followed similar patterns. Grace was 21 now. She'd saved 130,000 naira during her time in the program. More money than most people in Riverside Junction would see in 5 years. She used 50,000 to rent a small shop in town. She started selling clothes and cosmetics, things she'd learned about from the wealthy women she'd met at the fundraisers. The business was small, but it was hers. She made enough to live on, to eat well, to keep her head above water. But more importantly, she was still in contact with some of the men she'd met through Chief Okonkwo. Not for sex anymore. She was done with that part of her life. But these men had connections. They knew people. When Grace needed a loan to expand her business, one of them co-signed for her. When she needed supplies, another connected her with a distributor who gave her good prices. She turned those exploitative relationships into something useful, something that worked for her. Was it perfect? No. Was she happy? Not really. But she was surviving. She was independent. She owned something. That was more than she'd ever dreamed of having when she was standing at that junction at 16 years old. Amara was 20 now. She'd saved 80,000 naira. She'd used some of it to enroll in a private secondary school in a neighboring town. She lived with a distant aunt and paid for her own room and board with the money she'd saved. She was getting an education, a real one. She was in class with girls her age who'd never had to sell their bodies, who didn't know what hunger felt like, who took safety for granted. Sometimes she hated them for their innocence. But mostly she just focused on her studies. Because she had a plan. She was going to finish secondary school. She was going to pass her exams. She was going to get into university, even if she had to work her way through it. And then she was going to become something. A teacher maybe, or a businesswoman. Something that meant she'd never have to depend on anyone ever again. The money Chief Okonkwo's program had given her. Money she'd earned by doing things she'd rather forget. That money was buying her future. Was it worth it? She didn't know. But it was better than the alternative. Sarah was 21 too. She'd saved the most money of all the girls, 170,000 naira, because she'd been smart and careful and hadn't spent money on anything she didn't absolutely need. She'd gone back to her father and given him 50,000 naira. This is the bride price you would have gotten, she told him. Now I paid it myself. I don't belong to you anymore. I don't belong to any man. Her father had taken the money, shocked and confused and a little bit angry. But he'd taken it. Sarah used the rest of her money to start a small catering business. She cooked food and sold it at the market. She was good at it. The evening classes had taught her about hygiene and presentation and customer service. Her business grew slowly but steadily, and she was still learning. She bought books with her profits. She listened to radio programs about business and economics. She was educating herself. She'd escaped the marriage her father had planned for her. She bought her own freedom. The cost had been high, parts of her soul that she'd never get back. But she'd paid it willingly, because freedom, she'd learned, always has a price. The other girls had similar stories. Some thrived, some struggled, some fell back into poverty. But all of them had been given something they'd never had before, a chance. Chief Okonkwo had exploited them. There was no denying that. He'd taken advantage of their desperation, profited from their bodies, used them for his own gain. But he'd also educated them, fed them, given them money and connections and opportunities. He'd hurt them and helped them at the same time. And years later, when they thought about him, their feelings were complicated. They were angry at what he'd made them do, but they were also grateful for what he'd given them. They hated him and missed him in equal measure. Because life isn't simple. People aren't simple. And sometimes the person who hurts you is also the person who saves you. So now I ask you, was Chief Adebayo Okonkwo a predator who exploited the vulnerable? A man who saw desperate girls and used them for profit? Or was he the only person who actually tried to help when everyone else, the government, the church, society, had turned their backs? Can he be both things at the same time? The girls say he saved them. That without him, they would have been selling themselves anyway, but for pennies instead of thousands. That he gave them education, safety, and a future they never would have had. The law says he exploited them. That no amount of money or education erases the fact that he profited from their bodies when they were young and desperate. Mayor Adams stole 60 million naira meant to help these people. He created the poverty and desperation that made girls stand at junctions. He let schools collapse and roads crumble. And he walked free with nothing but a warning. Chief Okonkwo actually built the roads and schools, actually helped people prosper, actually gave desperate girls options. And he sits in prison for 20 years. Is that justice? Or is Mayor Adams's crime worse because his corruption created the conditions for everything else? Without his theft, would girls like Grace have been desperate enough to need Chief Okonkwo in the first place? And what about the girls themselves? They say they chose this. They say it was better than the alternative. But when your choices are sell yourself for pennies at a junction, marry a man 3 times your age, or join Chief Okonkwo's program, is that really a choice? Or is that just picking which way you want to be exploited? If Chief Okonkwo is guilty of exploitation, then what about the system that made his exploitation look like salvation? What about the government officials who stole development funds? What about the society that offers 17-year-old girls no options except marriage or prostitution? What about all of us who know these things happen and do nothing about it? Who is really guilty here? And if we punish Chief Okonkwo but let Mayor Adams go free, what message does that send? That it's worse to exploit people while helping them than to rob them and leave them with nothing? That the poor will be punished for surviving in the only ways available to them, while the powerful can steal and destroy with no consequences? I'm asking you, what do you think? Did Chief Okonkwo deserve 20 years in prison? Did the girls deserve to lose the one program that actually helped them, even if that help came with a terrible price? Did Mayor Adams deserve to walk free? Is there such a thing as justice in a world this broken? Or are we all just trying to survive in a system that forces us to choose between bad options and worse ones? You tell me, because I don't have the answer.